Hello, everybody. Hi. Woo-hoo. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Barsha Barsha Barsha, Episode 16, Broadway Backstage, with the inimitable Richard Hester. We'll be starting as soon as everybody gets here. We're broadcasting live on YouTube now. And on Fireside Episode, we talk what's going on here. Hi, Marwan. Hi, Sheila. Hi, Natalie. Okay. All right, good. That's okay. Okay, everybody. It is now 4:59. I'm going to keep a little bit on. Karina is here. Hello, Karina. Beautiful. Yay, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Barsha Barsha Barsha, Episode 16, Broadway Backstage. I'm Richard Hester, and I'd like to do my little opening number that I do for everyone. And here we go, Richard. Where do you go on Mondays when you want to have fun? Where can you go on Mondays when your day is done? Well, Fireside Chat, it's where it's at. The guests are all the best. Oh, I found a word. Wait a minute. Wait, I'm not done. I found a word to run with. What was it? Investor, sequester, and pester. Join me in welcoming Richard Hester. Join me in welcoming Richard Hester. Okay. All right, everybody. We are going to have a great show today, and I'm going to tell you why. This was, in essence, I would say, was it production supervisor for Jersey Boys on Broadway? Mr. Yep. Richard Hester. Everybody please clap for Richard Hester. I want to talk about exactly and give a proper introduction to this person. I need to say that I asked Richard for his bio, and his bio is so much more than what a bio normally is. But if you want to hear the basic things that he's done, his career as a stage manager and production supervisor is 40 years. He did everything from off-Broadway, the Harold Pinter Mountain Language, to the hit musical Jersey Boys. And he spent 16 years staging and maintaining that production. That is a historical thing, Jersey Boys. You have to understand. And when I came to Broadway, and then I subbed on the show, I was the first show sub, Richard. Yep. And then I became associate conductor. It was Richard that I listened to everything about. Thank you, Mother. Now, Richard, can you tell us, before we start anything, and I want to talk about your book, I want to talk about all the shows you've done, some of the incredible things in your bio, but I don't want to read the whole bio. How did you find out that you were suited to being a stage manager, production supervisor?
Well, I think originally I thought I was going to be an actor. I did some acting in school and in high school, and I did some acting in college, and I also did stage managing while I was there. And I went to school in New York. I went to Columbia University, and during my sophomore year, I was a little bored. So I wrote to a bunch of off-Broadway theaters and said I'd be happy to, intern and work for free if there's anything, that you want. And I'd never crossed my mind to write to any Broadway shows. I just wrote to off Broadway theaters. And Win Handman at the American Place Theater
Wow.
wrote is the only person who responded, and he said, "We've got this show coming in. It's this mime who's coming in, and we need someone to help out on it. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Sure." And I had no expectation, and it was Bill Irwin's first show, The Regard of Flight.
Beautiful.
Amazing. And I worked on that during my sophomore year. And then the show was a hit and expanded into the summer. And I worked for free, but then they started paying me. And I got paid $100 a week. And I was mortified that they were paying me because I thought that I would become too expensive for them and they'd get rid of me. So I said, "You don't have to pay me. That's okay." And Nancy Harrington, who was the stage manager,
Nancy Harrington,
who's just a goddess, Nancy grabbed me by the collar, threw me against the wall, and said, "Don't say anything that's stupid ever again. Somebody in the theater offers you money, you take it." And I was still thinking I was going to be an actor, but I was working as a stage manager, and I got more jobs out of that one, but I considered it my day job. And then one day, I was in an acting class, and I was like, "Wow, I don't know that this is what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do, but I don't think I want to do this." And then I kind of thought, well, I guess I'm doing what I want to do. I'm stage managing. So that's what I did.
that is a great story. That is a great story. I love that. So it wasn't that so you kind of stumbled into it, but then right away you knew it was right, is basically what you said. And I mean, you made a few mistakes on the way, but we all do.
Yeah, please.
So then, and I'm going to skip around just a little bit. What was your first Broadway show?
Well, I was working off Broadway on millions of plays. There was one year where I had 65 equity work weeks, meaning that I was contracted for sometimes two shows at the same time, doing one in the morning, like a school tour with Lincoln Center, and then another show in the evening. And these were like the show in the Pinter plays that I did was like Gene Stapleton, David Strathairn, and Pinter himself was in rehearsal with us. I mean, it was a big deal, but I was getting $200 a week or $220 a week or something. And I had 65 equity work weeks, and I made $19,000 that year. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. I can't afford to do it. And I said, if I don't get a Broadway show by the time I turn 30, I'm out. And it was a week before I turned 30. And I was starting to think, I wonder what I'm going to do. And I got a call from Secret Garden. They needed a replacement. And I started as a replacement assistant stage manager 1 week before I turned 30. And that was, I sort of never looked back. That was it.
Talk about manifesting. Come on, everybody. That's pretty amazing. Now, you got to understand, I've worked in this business, as has Richard. He is one of the stellar. We need to tell the audience, for those of them that are not in theater, and I don't know if that grammar was right, but please tell them the difference between stage manager, production supervisor, and ASM. What's the difference? What are the roles, just quickly, from all those three?
Well, as the stage manager of the show, you are essentially the captain of the ship. You are the one who is running it. If you think about Downton Abbey, I'm Mr. Carlson. I'm running the house. It's not my house, but I'm running it. So the assistant stage manager is the person, there's usually one or two on each show. So they're doing all the actual, they're queuing stuff backstage. They're keeping an eye on the carpenters and the prop people, that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. The stage manager, once the director has left and the show is open, becomes the director. You organize rehearsals and you call the show, meaning you sit backstage, and anytime the lights change or the set moves, it's because the stage manager, like the captain of a ship, has said go, and somebody's pushed a button or somebody's pulling on a rope or somebody's moving somewhere. So you're sort of the person who's coordinating it all. Then as production supervisor, I'm now not working on the show every day. I'm outside of the theater, but I'm now coming in and checking up on the show and saying, okay, we need to work on the acting here, or vocally we're a little off here, or technically we're a little off. And also sort of working on all the casting for other productions, and also doing the staging for new other plays. And with Jersey Boys, that was all over the world.
I know. I cannot believe we're going to talk about your traveling in a minute because it's related to the book too. But that means that the director has to trust you, correct? Because you're keeping the show the way the director wanted it, no matter who's in it.
I can't make changes because I would prefer somebody to do something one way or another. I can't even cast people that I might like. I have to basically be, in Jersey Boys' case, Des enough, and I need to go in there and say, okay, I am Des. Who am I going to like? I'm going to like this person and not this person. And I can't even sort of sit back and think, okay, well, if I had my druthers, I'd cast someone else. I have to really just leave me behind and be kind of channel Des throughout.
I know. I noticed that in rehearsals a lot. I noticed that. For those of you that don't know, we have different types of rehearsals. Sometimes we have put-ins that are not with the whole band, where I'm just conducting in downstairs, just playing the piano, doing the whole thing, and we have lights and sound, but we don't have a whole band. It depends on budgets. And Richard has to channel Des, even though even all the moving parts aren't there also, which I thought was an incredible talent of yours. And you also know how to talk to actors. So let's talk about this for a second. The stage manager is a member of Equity, which is also the actors union. So when a show is running, you are in essence representing the actors, right? I mean, you don't have anything to do with the music department, except if you have to communicate something to them that has to do with the actors.
It's not a very healthy alliance, the stage managers and the actors, because there's sometimes conflicts. And in my experience, honestly, the union almost always sides with the actors against the stage manager. We're a decided minority in there, but there's no real other place to put us. Right. If at some point the actors, as I'm sure is going to happen, that the actors in Equity align themselves with SAG and AFTRA, the film and television unions, and become one big acting union, then it seems to me that where the stage managers really need to go is into where all the first assistant directors on film and TV are, which is much in the Directors Guild, which is much more what our job is. There's not enough of us to really fill up the coffers of anywhere.
Right. And I want people to, why I do these talks about Broadway Backstage is that I don't know if anybody really knows what a stage manager does, and it's a very delicate job because you are a problem solver all the time, right?
Well, and it's really, you're right. I'm there because if there's a problem, I have to fix it. So it's rarely smooth sailing. And the weird thing about stage managers is the ultimate compliment you can pay a stage manager is to say, I didn't notice you. Like Mr. Carson in Downton Abbey, you want everything to run smoothly, and you don't want any evidence that your hand was involved with it.
That is so good. But you also have to put out fires. I noticed that. Let's say an actor, you have to make a decision, right? If an actor comes in after half hour, you have to decide if that actor is going on or not, correct?
You're constantly, someone is saying, like an understudy will say, I really want to go on for that part because my mom is flying in from Topeka, and she's only got 2 weeks to live, and or whatever. I mean, there's always some huge, massive sob story that's life changing, and you have to say, sorry, I can't. It's your job is to stand by. Your job is not to go on. And the problem is when if I can't make a decision because I like person A or person B more than the other person, I have to make a decision across the boards and say, because if I say yes to you, I have to say yes to everybody.
That is exactly right. And Richard and I had a few things where I experienced that. He's Switzerland. He has to be Switzerland. He can't do anything else. He has to be Switzerland. So
and it's not always easy to do that. I mean, there are times when I just want to roll my eyes and start screaming. But the part of my job is not to add to the energy. It's not to whatever is starting to broil up. I can't make it worse.
That's right.
I have to relax.
Yes, I remember putting out fires, you putting out fires. And you also have to know what should be said and not said to people in order to get that fire put out. That was another incredible skill that I witnessed with you. And anyway, I want to go back to your, before we get into your book, which is, I'm just so happy this book was published. Let's talk about Patti LuPone and Mandy Patinkin. So you continue to tour with them whenever they do their, have they stopped or what's going on there?
Mandy just had a concert last month, which was his first one back from the pandemic. And I couldn't actually be there because I'm in St. Louis doing The Karate Kid, the musical.
The Karate Kid, the musical he's doing now. Oh my God. Okay, go ahead.
So I had to set it up. But I couldn't actually be there for it. So and Patti's concerts, we have a couple coming up in September, and then then a whole bunch in the spring. But of course, because Patti's doing company, she's not really available to go off and do these concerts. Some of these concerts have been rescheduled about 5 times because of COVID.
Right.
And those are all one-off concerts where we set up things and they're in all sorts of very strange places sometimes. Sometimes they're in a theater. We did one where she was literally standing on a jacuzzi in someone's backyard. It was a fundraiser for something. And
so you know my friend Stacy Levine. You must
very
know.
Well, yes.
Stacy was the producer on my show, A Taste of Things to Come, that I wrote, my musical. So we love Stacy.
Yes, Stacy wrangles both Mandy and Patti and sort of produces all of their concerts everywhere. And we've done some strange stuff together. We did a whole thing with Fish at Madison Square Garden for New Year's Eve 3 or 4 years, which was really fun. And there was a big, John Ruitt choreographed this huge dance thing to go along with it for midnight on New Year's Eve, which was a blast. So yes, Stacy's fantastic.
Now, Richard is also in charge of, there's something that we call in theater tech. And now tech has changed after the pandemic because it used to be 10 out of 12 hours. When you were putting a show up, you were allowed to, during that period, have 10 out of 12 hours in a day to try to do all the different departments, the lighting, the sound, the this, the that. Where the phrase of his book comes from. Do you want to describe what your book, Hold Please, really means and why it's so important for stage managers?
Well, when you're teching, everything goes wrong all the time, and you have to stop what's going on. You have to figure out a way to stop it that isn't jarring. All of the scenery that's automated moves on tracks. It comes in, it flies in and out, and it's all designed so that it starts slowly, gets up to speed, and then slows down. You don't want something to go and stop and bang into itself. So when you say stop, though, in the middle of tech, if you really say stop, somebody's going to hit what's called an e-stop, which is automatically shuts everything down and stops it moving. If somebody is about to get hit by a piece of scenery, you want to be able to stop immediately. You don't want to slow down, you want to stop. Well, what happens when that happens is everything bangs into itself. And it then takes you quite a while to untangle everything and get back to where you were. So every stage manager has to come up with a way to stop in a gentle way. So my stopping of the show is, and hold, please.
Exactly.
And
and sometimes you're going over a moment in tech a million times. You know, I happen to love tech. A lot of musicians don't love tech, but I am one of the ones that loves it. I don't know why. I love process and I love it. You have to understand also, Richard has what they call a God mic, which is kind of what I have here. And you will hear that hold please over the entire theater. It's not like he's yelling hold please from the back. And hold please. Okay. So that was why the title of your book I thought was so genius. And before we get to it, I want to say you have to understand this man, everybody, has done everything on Broadway from Annie Get Your Gun with Bernadette Peters and Gypsy. And he also started with Mary Tyler Moore and Bernadette Peters, something was become an institution on Broadway called Broadway Barks. Could you tell them about Broadway Barks before we get into your book?
Broadway Barks started because every 6 weeks there is a fundraising effort for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS on Broadway. And it becomes a sort of competition between different shows to see who can raise the most money. So during Annie Get Your Gun, Bernadette was bound and determined to raise the most money. So we were putting jewelry on her, sending her out on stage for Sun in the Morning, Moon at Night, and coming off stage, taking the jewelry off, the earrings, and then at curtain call, we'd auction that off, and they'd be able to come up on stage and have a picture taken with her. She was emptying out her closet with old T-shirts, signing them. I mean, we were just anything that you could think of, we were selling, and we won. And whatever that was, we raised about $300,000 in 6 weeks, all on our own, and it was great. And so I was in the dressing room with Bernadette afterwards, and she said, "Oh, that was fantastic. What do we do now?" And I knew she loved dogs, so I said, "Why don't we do a dog show?" And that was literally as much effort as I put into the idea. And she loved the idea, and we tried to get all of the shelters in New York with animals that needed adopting to come into Schubert Alley and bring their dogs and cats, and then get celebrities to sort of introduce them to everybody. Well, it turned out that none of the shelters liked each other. They were all competitive. They didn't want to come. We got 3 shelters to agree, finally, grudgingly, to come down and do this, mainly because it was Bernadette. And we also got Bill Berloni, who was the original trainer of Sandy, the dog in the musical Annie, to agree to, who's connected with the Humane Society. So Bill was involved, and Andrew McArdle came, who was the original Annie. And the shelters came, and they didn't bring any of their puppies. They only brought their older dogs that couldn't find homes. And basically they did it just to shut everybody up, I think. I don't think they really had any expectations.
They didn't know that it was going to be like a tradition for years now.
Nobody was interested. So we did this thing, and we mostly used the cast of Annie Get Your Gun. We did a thing about spaying and neutering where all the chorus women were around Tom Wopat, getting him spayed and neutered. And
that's great.
I mean, it was a lot. And Bernadette had some of her friends like Joel Gray come in and do it. But it was a small event. And what happened was every single dog that was brought by these shelters, some of them had been in the shelters for years, found a home today. They all found homes.
They all find homes. This Broadway Barks. Can we have some applause for this? This is insane. Okay. All right. And this is the kind of person that Richard is. All right.
So now we're going to do it again on July 9th in person in Schubert Alley. It's our first one back since the pandemic. We have
Oh,
30 shelters. Bernadette Peters is going to host again, and we have a very special co-host who I don't think I'm allowed to announce yet, but she is a Broadway diva, and she's going to be amazing. So
oh my gosh. Okay, show up. If anybody wants a puppy and to meet a diva, that's what you show up. Okay, with. Now, I got to get into this book because this book blew my mind. And Richard will tell you this is the truth because when we went into the pandemic, everything Richard just described, you got to understand it's very intense when you're putting up a show. Running a show is one thing, putting up a show is another thing. We were shut down. None of us knew it was going to be 18 months, right, Richard?
no one had a clue.
No one had a clue. We just were am I right to say that this has never happened that long on Broadway?
It never happened. And the research that I did about the Spanish flu pandemic, it never happened then either.
Right. And I want to talk about how detailed that is. So I need to say something. The writer of the book of Jersey Boys is Rick Ellis, and he wrote the foreword to Richard's book, which is, as I said, please, you can get it anywhere. I put your website up, but it's Hold Please, Stage Managing a Pandemic. Here's what happened. I'm the observer. I'm going to tell you from my point of view what happened. Every single day on Facebook, Richard Hester, who is one of my friends on Facebook, because we worked together on two shows, Jersey Boys and Donna Summer, the musical, was writing these long posts and giving us not just statistics, but observations, just everything about what was going on in his neighborhood and what was happening. And we were losing our minds. And at one point I said, Richard, you have to write a book. This is insane. So is it fair for me to say that this book is made up of your Facebook posts?
Yes, it was. I started writing them as a way to get everyone basically to just calm down. Everybody was losing their mind, and people were posting all sorts of crazy nonsense all over social media about what was happening, what was not happening. And what I tried to do is basically say, okay, everybody, this is actually what's happening. None of this is happening, but this is happening. And if you use common sense, it means that this is probably going to happen. And I try to just sort of take everything and relax it. I also very early on made a conscious effort to always try and end positively. I thought that nobody needed doom and gloom. Even when things were doom and gloom, and they really got doom and gloomy in there. Yep. During the election and during George Floyd. I mean, there was a lot of really serious stuff going down, but there was always hope. There was always a path out. And for everything bad that was happening, there were lessons to be learned, and there was a silver lining to much of it. And so I took it upon myself. I needed a job. And so I did it as much for myself as I did it for everybody else. And people started texting me and say, "Where is it? It's late. I'm about to have lunch. I don't have your thing yet. Where is it coming?" And I started feeling a responsibility to do it every day.
Yes, then that's when when this book came out, as you know, I was reacting to every single post. Brilliant. Because, okay, let me just get into reading. I have a few beautiful parts of this. And by the way, I decided to buy not only the book, but I bought the audio version because I asked Richard, are you reading the audio version? And he said, I am. And the reason I did that is because, can you give us the Jersey Boys speech that went on for 11 years in the theater? Go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At this the taking of pictures and the use of recording devices are strictly prohibited. It's gone right out of my head.
Okay, but it's about the unwrapping. It would be good time and all that. Yes. So he said, if you choose to have a soothing lozenge.
If you would like to have a hard candy or a soothing lozenge, now would be the perfect opportunity to unwrap it.
Thank you. Enjoy the show or something. So every night of my life that I was conducting the show or playing key one, we would hear Richard's voice that was pre-recorded, and everybody used that speech on the road too, Richard. I mean, they have it on the road. So for 11 years, this man's voice was in my ear. Okay, I need to say that. Now, the writer of Jersey Boys, I got to read a couple things. He wrote the foreword to your book, Rick Ellis. And what he did was describe Richard exactly. I'm sorry, this is embarrassing, but I have to read a little of it. So this is from the foreword by Rick Ellis. This is the first paragraph. If a Martian anthropologist were to appear at my door, fully vaccinated, of course, and ask for the name of one person who represented everything that a modern, civilized, committed, thoughtful person ought to represent, oh, come on, let's face it, I would unhesitatingly say Frankie Valli. Family's everything after all. But if that same Martian were to ask me who I'd want around to help restart the civilization if it suddenly went belly up, who would I would want in my lifeboat, who I would want to stage manage my show, or even better, my life, or just someone I'd want around in general, I'd say that's easy. Richard Hester. That's a big deal from Rick Ellis, who we all know. And I love that he says you're not just a stage manager, you're a consummate student. It's true. Because you're always looking. That means you have to be open all the time to think about limitless possibilities when there is a fire, like we talked about. So he goes on, and when you get it, the book, which I hope you will read the rest of the foreword by the writer of Jersey Boys. So now I'm going to talk about some things that when I reread the book that we forgot about during the pandemic. We forgot a lot. And you even thought it was just good. They told us in the beginning it was like 8 weeks it was going to be, right? What did they tell us in the beginning?
I think at one point in a very early post, I said, I don't know what we're all going to do for the next 2 weeks, but I guess we'll have to figure out something.
Yeah, that's exactly what you said. So, and then you commented on the president, even in a stage managerial way. We knew what side you were on, but you just gave the facts, ma'am. This man is unhinged today, and this is what he said. It was like insane. So, okay. So I want to read something. When we shut down, I believe was it March 13th?
I think so. Yes.
Seems about right. You started on March 12th and then March 13th. Okay. So this is how we'd always start. 17,660 cases reported in Italy. 1,266 deaths, 250 in the last 24 hours. So everything, then he started doing New York's. 633 total reported cases in New York, 10 deaths. And then he would go on with this incredible, incredible stuff. So let me just see if you still, looking back on this, feel this way. We are truly looking at the most monumental societal change that any of us have ever lived through. 9/11 changed things for us, but the immediate disruption was only a couple of days. See, you explained to me where we're at now, and when you wrote that sentence, did you really have a sense of how monumental this was going to be?
We were so disrupted. Everything got shut down. I could not imagine a path back to what it was. Even then, even 2 weeks in, I thought it's not going to be the same when we come back. This is something new that none of us have experienced. Even though it turned out to be something old that 100 years ago during the Spanish flu, almost the exact same thing happened. But it was shocking. And, we had a series of unprecedentedly shocking events happen over the course of that year, each one of which successively changed our society.
That's exactly right. And yet you managed to talk about it macrocosmically, but in the microcosmic sense, this is a paragraph from your book. We're all going to see how long our hair can get and what color it all really is. We're going to become better cooks. Michael and you, Michael's your husband, Michael and I are making sure that we have enough non-perishable food, canned goods, grains, protein sources to allow us to stay home for a couple of weeks. We need some toilet paper, but not all the toilet paper. Remember, like immediately, what is it about toilet paper going off shelves? What is that?
I, who knows? It's funny. I was in Walmart yesterday or the day before, and I needed to buy toilet paper, and there was this huge, massive, 24 roll thing, and I thought, oh, maybe I should buy that because it might be good to have a stock. I've never thought about stocking up on toilet paper before, and now it's always in the back of my mind.
Yes, and during this time in late March, it is always on my mind too. I'm thinking, oh my God, are we going to run out again? Let's talk about where Jersey Boys was on a cruise ship when this all happened. Can you tell us what happened because remember, cruise ship people were stuck on cruise ships. Go ahead.
Well, cruise ships were the worst place to be during the pandemic, bar none, because everybody was crammed together in a small space. The ship that Jersey Boys is on has 4,500 passengers and 1,700 crew. And it's a huge ship, but it's still a very limited space. And some of those crew members, bless them, are 6 to a room. And it's not a big room. It's a 10 by 12 room. They're tiny rooms. So as soon as COVID struck, they got the passengers off, but they kept the cast and the crew on that ship. They were on there for weeks.
Why?
Because they've been tested positive. There were cases on. No country wanted to take them, and the ships is they're not United States ships. To get out of paying taxes, cruise ships are all connected to the Bahamas, to Panama, to some place with more favorable things. So what the United States government was saying is, you're from the Bahamas, you have to go back to the Bahamas. Well, now the Bahamas hadn't recovered from the hurricane yet. So there's no way that the Bahamas were in any fit state to be able to handle those passengers. So these ships bounced all over the world. They were out at sea. I would get, was in communication with the cast on the ship for weeks, and they were like, okay, we're going to Norfolk. And it's like, oh, Norfolk won't let us dock. We're going to go to Miami. Oh, Miami won't let us dock. And the everybody on the ship is from all over the world.
But why'd they let the passengers out and not the cast?
There's so many things that happened during this pandemic that don't make any common sense whatsoever. To this day, some of the mask mandates and things that are happening don't make any sense to me at all. Like there are no mask mandates here in St. Louis at all. But in New York, like in the early days, when you went into a restaurant, you had to wear a mask when you were walking around the restaurant. But when you sat at the table, you took it off. Well, what possible sense does that make? I mean, do you think that the virus is only going to be up here while you're walking and not down here? What about people in wheelchairs who are at the same? I mean, none of it made any sense.
And wiping off groceries and not touching your eyes and stuff. I don't know it did remind me of AIDS. I'm so sorry. Like we had horrible miscommunication and information at that point too.
Well, I talked to the guy who edited Randy Schilt's book and the band played on.
Yes.
He is the guy that gave me the idea to start each entry with the statistics.
Yes, good.
And what he said, because that's what he did, and the band played on. Right. Because I was writing about the statistics, which I did every day, was in terms of reading the book deeply boring. It didn't mean anything. But putting it in small writing. And I had fights with the publisher about how small the writing was. And I'm like, people, if they want to look at it, they need to really look at it. And it needs to be just there. And there are little Easter eggs throughout those little subtitles, just to keep people on their toes. But what this guy said was, if you keep that number going, it serves as the heartbeat of what was going on.
That's right. And I loved it.
Really true.
I loved it, and I loved it in the audiobooks because as I'm listening to you, like we're at March 22nd, it says 15,191 total reported cases in New York, 249 deaths, which eventually gets up to thousands,
It's
and then
not,
you go on. And my favorite thing of that entry was, we all need to stop listening to the daily White House briefings. They are not helpful.
yeah, truly. They're truly not.
So, okay.
But
Now,
I sort of going back to the subtitles, I found that by putting that in every day, I could then talk about the minutia of my day. And it didn't seem callous or crass because in the backdrop of this ever-present growing problem that you never forget because it's always there, life was still going on. And life is still going on in all of its stupid detail. And all of us were like losing pencils and, getting anxiety about burning bread and whatever the stupid thing was, which seems ridiculous given the events happening around us nationally, but that's human life.
and you, yes, and the decibel level of New York was so low that when you do the entry about bird calls and how you're able to now hear the difference between a starling and another bird. I mean, we never think about that in New York. You know what? I was walking down 47th Street and I heard a starling.
Yeah, who knows?
It was just like these little incredible things. And then April 2nd, remember what I just read? There were only in the hundreds. By the time of that entry in March and April, you said 100,780 total reported cases in New York, 4,138 deaths. And then the next line is, the city is in full glorious bloom. So that dichotomy is so beautiful in the book, and it happens so many times. And you said people aren't screaming at each other in New York, trying to rise above the usual rave level decibels of the city. And it's true, we take it for granted. The city is loud. Now, your chapter goes on to talk about the Spanish flu. And I really love this. And if anybody reads this part, these statistics that you bothered to do because you had the time to research it are pretty amazing. And the yellow fever epidemic. I didn't even know about the yellow fever pandemic. I mean,
we've been beset by pandemics all the way through, and back in Shakespeare's day, the plague was a regular visitor, and during lockdown is when Shakespeare wrote some of his greatest plays. He had nothing else to do. So if there wasn't a plague, we wouldn't have half of these plays because he was literally trapped at home. He couldn't go out because of the plague. And so he wrote plays.
yeah. And so that chapter, that particular entry, which takes up 4 or 5 pages, is amazing. And then even in April 5th, 2020, when it says to wear a mask or not wear a mask, speaking about Shakespeare, some of these entries are incredible. And I like it because it reminds me of David Sedaris, but it's not funny in that same way, because what you're doing is these small slice of life things, like you said, which is big picture, little picture of my life and how you dealt with it. I think at that point, we were pretty much even 2 months into your posts suggesting that you write a book. And I was getting my information from you. I didn't even get my information because I trusted you. I trusted you as because I've worked with you. So I trusted that you were going to communicate something effectively and you're not going to put out false information. And we were getting such false information at the time.
From
anyway, it doesn't
all around us.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then you always ended like your last thing. It's so beautiful. Like you said, statistic, slice of life, and then at the end, positivity. Like on this day of April 16th, in the middle of this global crisis, the virus, the economy, and the terror there are still many moments of utter simplicity and genuine beauty. And it's time to open windows, look out, and up at them. Breathe the day in deeply. You told people to breathe when breathing could kill them. Okay. And you just kind of made poison into medicine. These entries are pretty amazing. Anyway, I did want to ask if you have time in the next 20 minutes for a question and answer session. If anybody would like to come up, please, please, please raise your hand and come up and ask Richard anything. I know we only have an hour here. Natalie's up on stage. Do you want to come to camera or do you want to stay off camera?
I can come to camera.
Great. This is Natalie, who's on stage. Isn't this an amazing thing? Go ahead, Natalie.
Hi, Richard. I used to work in theater, and then thanks to the pandemic and COVID-19, layoffs occurred, and now I've moved on with life. But I just wanted to take a moment to thank you and everyone that you work with for coming back to the work, because I am just shy of getting to finish a Broadway series out here in Dayton, and I'll never say no to another show again because we'll never know when we'll miss it.
It's absolutely true. And there's so many more challenges putting on a show now.
Mm-hmm.
Just during the rehearsal period of Karate Kid, we had 9 people come down with COVID. We were getting tested every day. There was one clump of people who had all been out. They'd all gone out together the same night, and they all got it. And it was they all had to be out for 5 days. The guidelines were confusing, what we were supposed to do, what we weren't supposed to do. Thankfully, at the moment, we're COVID free, but there were actors who were out we had a stage manager out for a week. And when you're putting up a show, losing somebody for that period of time is just really difficult. And it just adds a whole dimension of difficulty in actually doing the job.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. And I hope that people in audience situations, because I think that I get a different perspective when things happen during a show because I used to be there. And so I hope that anyone who is listening knows that there are so many things going on behind the scenes thanks to this pandemic. And maybe your tickets get rescheduled. Maybe the actor you really wanted to see isn't there, but we still get to, at some point, see theater. And we need to be walking forward in love about that, because it's happened around here where shows have gotten canceled or rescheduled, and people just need to put kindness first.
Always. That's true, I think, of anything. Nobody is canceling a show to mess with you. They're canceling a show because there was no other option. And we came close to canceling a couple of times. There was even one time where I suggested that we should cancel, and we figured out a way to do it. And the Karate Kid, the musical, I have to say, is a musical full of love and full of, it's about finding balance in your life and figuring out who you are. And it's more important in some cases to spread that message than it is for anything else. The arts are really our lifeblood, and we have to do everything we can to protect them.
Mm-hmm.
That is so true. I want to say that by the time we got to April 26th, the number was 293,575 total reported cases and 22,910 deaths. And we start talking about those refrigerator things with the bodies and stuff. And meanwhile, Richard starts talking about the kids and starts addressing, and in a funny kind of a black humor way, in a way, and I'm using that in a, which way I'm using it. I'm guessing that almost everybody with kids is more than ready for our schools to reopen. Little did we know how long that would go on. Then you start talking about the public school system, and you talk about the National Endowment for the Arts and about President Johnson. I mean, it's insane. And then the next entry is Michael cooks and I do the dishes. That's our routine. So this is what I love about the book. You're getting an idea that we're painfully aware that our jobs are shut down and we don't know when we're coming back. But then you're also, let me show you what this moment is right now. That's why it's an emotionally stirring book, Richard. I need to say, like I'm not tired of reading it, and I read every post on Facebook. So I'm reading and listening, and Natalie, thank you for coming up and asking and talking about what you did.
No problem. Thank you for the episode.
Yeah. Does now my friend Sheila is here, and I wonder if she wants to come on and talk because she's in the business as well on the producer side and the writer side of it, and plus the actor side of it. So if you would like to come up, Sheila, I'm going to invite you. Um, and I'm also my mother's here, Sheila Ray.
Hi, Richard.
Hi, Sheila.
What a wonderful interview this was, Barsha. Really fabulous. I'm in my study. Actually, you can see the cast, the original cast of applause behind me. Right
Yes,
there.
yeah, you were in applause, weren't you?
I was in applause.
Right.
Yeah, this was just a terrific interview, and I can't wait to read your book. I didn't read your posts on Facebook because we're not Facebook friends, but we're going to be now because I'm going to friend you.
Please do.
So, Sheila, you must have worked with fantastic stage managers like Richard.
I have worked with, my favorite stage manager was Steve Swagbaum, who retired a couple of years ago. And oh my God, I knew Steve since about 1964 when he was doing summer stock with me, and then became one of Broadway's biggest production stage managers, like Richard.
Yeah. Richard, and you could stay here, Sheila, for a minute. How would you, how many countries do you think you traveled to with Jersey Boys? Do you know off the top of your head?
Danny Austin, the associate choreographer, and I did the math one day, and I think that we performed Jersey Boys in 17 different countries.
Oh my God. Incredible.
I mean, and some of them were long-term things. We were in Australia for several years. We were in Holland for a year, in London for many, many years. And then some of them, like we were in Istanbul, Turkey for like 2 weeks and places like that. So some of them we kind of toured through and some of them we actually sat down a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Sheila, did you want to say anything or you did
well,
you
no, I actually wanted to mention stage managers and dance captains and people like that. Sammy Dallas Bays just passed away a couple of days ago. And Sammy and I had worked together in 1963 in Chicago, and he knew me. And that's when when I graduated college and came to New York, he hired me into the Fiddler Company. And our stage manager was Mr. Bayless. Do you remember him?
Was it
Richard?
Jim? No.
I always called him Mr. Bayless. I'm not even sure I ever knew his first name.
It's like Mr. Carson.
Very formal guy, always suit and tie, called a show, impeccably dressed. And Jerry Robbins loved this man. And anyway, Sammy
passed away.
Was kind of responsible for all of the dancing and movement in Fiddler, which the stage manager, couldn't direct us in. And so anyway, just kind of missing Sammy at this moment.
Aww.
Talking about all wonderful people who put shows together and keep them running. And,
It's so the continuity of our business is fascinating to me because there's a whole the people immediately before me, people like Steve Zweigbaum, who were, I don't want to say the generation before, but maybe the 10 years before.
Right.
And then the people there are already two new sets of people after me in that point. And I feel myself moving towards that sort of elder statesman place. You stick around long enough, you get to know everybody.
Exactly. That's kind of how I feel. Well, I'm in this business probably as long as you. Longer, because I started as a kid. So good 50 years. Oh my God. Anyway.
Well, Sheila, thank you so much because I love when people
come. Thank you, Richard, for this wonderful interview. It was enlightening and you were terrific.
I cannot believe that. Well, that I haven't talked to you about this book, but please order it somehow and get it. Hold, please. Stage managing
I
a
should, everyone
pandemic.
who's listening.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to put you nicely into the audience, if that's okay. And I want to wrap up with Richard by saying, first of all, thank you in this last 8 minutes. We didn't even begin to start. Yeah, please, everybody, a round of applause. It's just amazing. And please don't forget, we can get it at, I just want to mention that the fight coordinator on Broadway, Rick Sordelay, who actually did our show, Tina Turner, too, he coordinates the fights. And I know some secrets now about slaps and how you hear them. Was the publisher of this book, right? You want to give Rick some props about this?
Please. Rick Sordelay, along with his friend David Blixt, who is a historical fiction novelist, formed Sordelay Inc. to keep David Blixt's books in print. And they formed this publishing company. And one of the things that they do now is champion first-time writers and help them through the process. So they're not a huge publishing company that takes care of everything, but the amount of work that David did on my book in terms of formatting it and proofreading it and getting it out there, because each different version of the book, hardcover, the soft cover, the audiobook, needs different formatting. And in fact, there's 2 different softcover companies. One, and all of this is just stuff that I learned as we were doing it. If you're a bookstore, there's a company whose name has gone out of my head, that you buy the books from at a reduced rate, and then you sell them. And then if you don't sell them, you sell them back, and Sordelay Inc. has to sort of eat those, although they can send them out to another place to get sold as well. So it's like the business of it is fascinating. And Rick and David took care of all of it. Rick was reading my posts throughout. And Rick is the one who said, we think this could be a book.
Yes. We're giving claps for Rick Sordelay to recognize this like we all did. All right. I would want to say once again, please Google. It's on Amazon. It can be on Kindle. It's everywhere, right? The book?
It's everywhere. It's in Barnes & Noble. It's
Barnes and Noble. Yeah. Hold, please. Stage Managing a Pandemic by Richard Hester. You will see how a theater stage manager's brain works in a pandemic, but you will also see the beauty that he found in New York City, even though we were going through such a horrible time on so many levels. And we also, well, I'm not going to get into it because it'll give us another whole hour to talk about. I love you, Richard, to take your one day off from Karate Kid to come and speak with us about your book. And I hope that when everybody leaves this talk, you will go out and download it, buy it, and just read it. It's an incredible book. What do you have to say about the fact that will you write another book?
I have an idea for another book that I have vaguely started on. And I think that I'm going to start doing it the same way that I did this one, and do it in daily pieces, or maybe not daily, but every other day. It's going to require a little bit more research, and it's not necessarily linear, but I can tell you it's about my father. And it is about, he was born during the Depression, fought in World War II, was at 9/11. He's over the course of his life, he experienced so many pivotal moments in history. And he wrote a lot about his life at my sister's and my request when he retired. And so I have all of his writing, and I want to sort of put together the history of our family, but through the lens of understanding or trying to understand what it was like to be alive during the moments that he was, and experiencing them as he was experiencing them, rather than looking at it as history, as a story from back then. I want to try and connect it up with our lives here. And we'll see if I'm successful at that, but I'm going to give it a shot.
You will be successful. Everybody, please, please give it up for Richard Hester. We are so lucky to have had him today. Oh, listen to this music that the Waitbot has. I cannot take that music, so I'm going to mute it and bring it back up because it drives me crazy when it's the wrong music. Let's see what happens. Yes! Okay, this was really great, Richard. And I miss you. I miss working with you, but I'm sure our paths will cross again. And once again, thank you for on your day off taking time to talk to us. Everybody, bye.